David, the relationship, I guess, between landlords and tenants, real estate in the retail industry, and the need for flexibility, but also certainty. How do you, as a retailer and trying to grapple with your changing customers, think about those things?
But I think it is becoming a different equation, and historically that discussion between the landlord-tenant was about price and it was about the length of the lease. And now I think more flexibility has been introduced into that discussion, and there's a greater partnership in not just setting up a good property scenario at the start, but also maintaining the quality of that offering. So that flexibility is coming through length of lease, but also potential for break clauses, also capital contributions and rent freeze, so that the retailer can invest that in the quality of the retail offering, which has to ultimately improve the asset value of the business. So what's very important for a retailer, and certainly the business that I'm involved in, has come out of a distressed situation and is a turnaround. We have been looking, as a lot of retailers are, look at re-engineering the operational model, and we need to build that flexibility in.
Pascal, as a landlord, but also a shareholder who's a big retailer, how do you feel about the relationships?
I'm on both camps, right? So I think that fundamentally, the value of a real estate asset is fully correlated to the success of the tenant, right? And in most cases, right? Of course, if you're located in Champs-Élysées, you can hope that you can be able to release, the store to another potential tenant. But there are many other occasions where it's not the case, right? So I think I definitely agree that the collaboration and the dialogue between landlords and tenants have to be more intensive than it has what it has been in the past. And the only caveat I would say is that from the landlord perspective, we manage our assets. We need to manage our liabilities as well. And if we had assets with very short-term visibility, it's going to be tough to manage liabilities, right? So that's the only limit.
Now, are consumers in some of these newer markets going to see the same real estate development? We're going to build high streets, then hypermarkets, then we're going to worry about online, or some of them are going to jump some of those retail formats, and everybody in China is going to just buy things online, for example. I exaggerate, but how does that
Well,
work?
certainly, I think, and I know in places like India, they skip a step where they don't go through the computer. They go from, they've gone right on to online, to web, ordering things through their phone. So, but I do think there's a natural progression still of stores being developed, because I think for a brand to create their image, it still works when they have a high street location. People develop it better. But I think in these other countries, it's great exposure to the brand. They might start with online applications, but they still move to go into in-store operations.
Let's imagine an online-only food retailer, right? You know what? This food retailer would need a store anyway, right? It would be a store without any customer, because the customers would be in front of their screens. But you would have to have a store with the products and with people picking up the products and putting them into the same caddy, and so from a real estate perspective, I think that the e-commerce is not a threat at all. It may be an opportunity, but it's not a threat at all.
The suppliers of product which go through retail, both online and bricks, and certainly in the sector I work in, are looking at differential terms, and this is not too commercially sensitive, but looking at differential terms to support bricks retailers, because of that very point. The customer needs to be able to see that product before they can make an informed decision. So online performs a major part in the purchasing cycle, but not all of it. The customer still wants to be able to touch and feel and play with that product.
I said at the beginning that I thought retailers, certainly compared to 18 months, 12 months ago, were feeling a bit more positive and confident, recognized it was complicated and challenging, but were optimistic about opportunities for growth. If you're either in the real estate industry or for the people at this conference, how should they feel about retail real estate over the next 3 to 5 years? Pascal, would you like to start?
I think that from a tenant perspective, I think we can be reasonably optimistic. We see a lot of growth, of course, in China, Brazil, and other emerging countries. We think that the situation is going to significantly improve in Europe, and of course, our new Carrefour Planet concept is going to be of a great help here. And from a pure real estate perspective, we see cap rates going down again, right? the retail assets are seen, rightly so in my view, as the most resilient asset class. So I think that from that perspective, there's no reason to be pessimistic here. There will be no real estate success without retail success. The two are completely correlated. So the two camps, if there are two camps, the two camps have to work together.
I'm reasonably optimistic. I think we are. Europe generally is a consumer-driven society. People like to spend money. That's fueled in many sectors by innovation. I think the pace of innovation continues. That suppliers do not seem to be cutting back on research and development, whether it's food-based products or consumer electronics, as I'm involved in. So I think that demand is there. That can be knocked off course through confidence. I have a particular thing about the media and the role of the media in creating confidence. But I'm reasonably optimistic about this next period.
Jody? Aditi?
I think the consumer is obviously benefiting this multi-channel distribution because it enables the retailer to know the consumer much better. They can really cater their product to them. And in terms of what's happening with technology, I think it makes customer service much better. I think it's phenomenal what can be done and how the customer can be catered to today and that real response time. So I think it's positive. There's lots of channels to grow and ways to grow and lots of ways to deliver the services to the consumer that there weren't before.
Aditi, how do people feel? Positive?
Well, I think looking at sort of the events and looking at all the retail news stories that have happened this year, there hasn't been any of the big news stories of the likes of Woolworths or anything of that going down this year. So it definitely does seem to be getting better from a news perspective. But I just think looking forward, at least in the UK, if you look at what's going to happen next year, the rise in VAT, the rise in the price of cotton, and basically just trying to look at these issues and how they might eventually have an impact on retailers and then their real estate decisions and whether they'll think of driving more sales online because, in that case, you can control your property costs slightly better than rolling out sort of more high street chains while dealing with that. So,
Thank you.